Is Jamstack the future? Well, the real answer to this for me is that no any one particular technology is ever the future. No matter what any technologist wants you to say, believe, or feel, they almost all have places. Jamstack is another one of those that came out of nowhere. People love it, they use it, but it's not going to dictate and dominate tech. Same thing as NoSQL databases. They have a place. Same thing as Ruby and Rails, or Python and Django, or Java and all the myriad servers that they use. Nothing is ever the future of tech. They all have places. And this is something that is really difficult, I think, for all of us to internalize, is that we may want it, and we may feel it, and we may be trying to make the optimal choice. We should make a more comfortable choice, a choice that's more pragmatic, a choice that we understand, and it has a place for us, and we feel productive in it. So to answer the question super direct, is Jamstack the future? No, because nothing is ever the future. It has a place in the future, and it's useful. And that's what we should feel good about. Next question. What are some misconceptions that you realize later? I'm going to go over 3 today. First, when it comes to process, data-driven development is actually okay. It actually, in fact, can be quite good. The common misconception is that no date should ever enter engineering land. And I don't agree with that anymore. I used to actually think that way. But what I've come to realize is that dates are for the company too. They're an aligning force, an aligning function, and they get everybody, marketing, sales, product, finance, everybody on the same page. Not every project needs dates, but definitely some could benefit from it. All right, the second one is rather simple and based on my own experience, but 5 nines uptime is not really worth it. And we're talking about the incremental expense to get to that point for most organizations in the world. We talk about this quite a bit, but I think it's an incredibly important thing to understand about why you'd be going to do that and what the cost would take to get there. Now, I've always generalized this back to what are you always trying to achieve and why? A lot of our entire industry just parrots each other, saying I want 0 downtime or 5 nines uptime, or I want to achieve X, Y, or Z. And I want to take it back to what are you trying to do? Why? What's the cost trade-off, etc. Again, specifically in my case, what I've learned, 5 nines uptime is usually not worth it. All right, last one for today. Early on in my career, I believed that I wanted product engineering design, but particularly engineering, to operate under the same process and have very similar structures in how they were going to operate. I've come to realize that that whole way of working is not helpful. And in fact, it's a hammer and nail situation. Different teams, different structures, they should possibly operate under different cadences, different processes, and have different requirements going in and out. We don't need to adapt everybody the same way of working. And the metaphor I use here is if you think of a company in particular, but an engineering organization as a large cruise ship, well, the entire ship moves at one pace. There might be teams or two that move differently on there, but at the end of the day, the pace of the entire company is set up by that one cruise ship and where it's going in its destination. I no longer like this way of thinking. I like to think about your company and the development of it as more of like a flotilla, which is it has ships of different types for different purposes inside of it. So you might have several cruise ships. Maybe you have 3 main ways of working, but you also have speedboats and helicopters, and submarines and jet skis. The point being that you have multiple different ways you're working inside the organization. The downside of this is what people feel is that it's chaotic. And I contend no matter what you do, you're going to have a little bit of chaos in your organization. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to optimize the organization for very different purposes at different times. So I no longer think about getting everybody on the same page, working the exact same way. I think about optimizing locally for each one of them and then maximally for the company. And if I think about those at extremes, then I understand what I'm going to put in place for each organization.